From News Nation headquarters, this is News Nation Prime.
We do turn to a heartbreaking new video released by Hamas showing a young Israeli hostage digging what he believes is his own grave. 24-year-old Eviatar David, kidnapped on October 7th from the Nova Music Festival, is now a shadow of himself. He is starving, frail, incredibly weak, held inside of this dark Gaza tunnel. And in the video, he says he has not eaten in 3 days. His family is saying time is running out. They are pleading with Israel and the U.S. to save him. They add, quote, Hamas is using our son as a live experiment in a vile hunger campaign. The U.S. says it has a plan, but with no deal yet, the fate of Eviatar and others remains agonizingly uncertain. And U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff told hostage families in Tel Aviv no more piecemeal deals, signaling an all-or-nothing agreement must be in place soon. Meanwhile, aid meant to feed starving civilians in Gaza is instead becoming a flashpoint for violence. Hospitals in Gaza say Israeli strikes and gunfire killed at least 18 people, while the Israeli military says it fires only in response to threats or to disperse dangerous crowds. However, the United Nations is now calling this a pattern, shootings near every major aid site. They have condemned the mounting death toll, calling the situation, quote, man-made famine fueled by restrictions on humanitarian access. We do want to welcome in our panel tonight. We have Republican strategist Matt Klink, who has more than 3 decades of work with Republican candidates and causes, and Scott Bolden, News Nation political contributor, former chair of the D.C. Democratic Party. Gentlemen, glad both of you are with us tonight. Matt, let's start with you. After weeks of escalating reports of famine, of civilian suffering, we see Special Envoy Witkoff finally seeing this up close. Does this shift at all the U.S. posture, or are we still seeing caution from the White House and leveraging a full influence to force a ceasefire?
The United States has pushed for a ceasefire. The only reason why one doesn't exist is because of Hamas. Let's be very clear. Hamas has a history, and I think we saw it most recently just this past week, where the Hamas or the Gaza Health Ministry, which is a propaganda arm of Hamas, throws out false and fictitious statements. The news media then runs with these false statements, and then the world and the UN gets all in a Twitter about this. The reality is that under the old UN relief effort, Hamas controlled it. They were taking that aid and not distributing it. We have a better aid process, but guess what? Hamas doesn't like that because they no longer control it. So the only way that this is going to happen is ultimately when the Gazans realize and the Palestinians realize Hamas has to go. They are the cause of all of this. This is not an Israeli doing. This is Hamas's doing.
Scott, I want to give you the chance to respond to this. The United Nations is flagging what it is calling a pattern, as we were just covering a moment ago. Israeli strikes and shootings, gunfire happening near major aid sites and distribution areas. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I think the United Nations is absolutely right. There's this pattern in practice. That's the first thing. The second thing is Hamas does have to go. Me and my colleague agree on that, and they're part of the problem. They're not part of the solution. In the interim, though, this country and Western Europe and all other countries are looking at these pictures of famine, and you've just got to let the aid go through. I understand Israelis' concerns, but there's no empirical data to support that, at least according to the UN reports. And so we're caught in this political quagmire while we see dying children or children starving or begging for food. Both can't exist, and right now both are existing. And so I would hope that the United States would put even more pressure on Israel and Hamas to allow this aid to get into Gaza so that we can at least, if they can't stop fighting, and by the way, I think Israel has accomplished its goal. There's nothing left in Gaza. If they can't stop fighting in other parts of Gaza or Israel, then let the people eat and let the kids stop starving. And I think me and my colleague can agree on that part.
Yeah, with the time we have, Matt, I want to make sure that we talk about Russia with the panel. Trump moving 2 nuclear subs in, the direct vicinity and area in response to Medvedev's comments, not Putin's comments, though. Was this a show of strength or a dangerous overreaction to what is perhaps just posturing?
Well, look, it's absolutely a show of strength. I think that, Mr. Medvedev he swapped positions briefly with Putin a while ago. He clearly has the ear of Putin. That being said, look, on the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima, it just goes to show you that nuclear tensions among two of the world's great powers are still high. And look, this is all a matter of posturing. It all relates back to broader geopolitical issues. You can talk about Ukraine, but this is a much larger issue. I think the fact that the U.S. is pressuring China to abandon its ally Russia, it all plays into this picture. This is geopolitics being played at a macro level.
Scott, Medvedev isn't calling the shots. Putin is. So why is Trump engaging in this rhetoric at all?
I mean, you've got two superpowers. Are you telling me that a text that tells us nothing more than that we got nukes and you've got nukes causes the president to be personally offended and as commander-in-chief to move nuclear submarines around the world? Well, that's kind of where we are. The former president has no authority whatsoever. If that's what it takes to get under our president's skin, and he's got nuclear warheads at his disposal, then God help us all. But I do think it's chest thumping, if you will. But it's too serious for it to be done by text between these two leaders. Putin hasn't said that. But you see, the problem with all of this is that the president and the U.S. have no cards to play in regard to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Putin wants Ukraine. He doesn't want peace. President Trump wants peace and has put himself in a bad position because he's given Putin a deadline. And I can't predict the future, but if that deadline comes and passes, what cards does the U.S. or Donald Trump have to play? Because Putin, as I said, isn't going to stop. He's demonstrated he's not going to stop. And so now what do we do after that 8-day deadline? We have nothing else to play.
Well, Matt, he has said that it would be sanctions. The question is, will that be enough? And I want to give you a chance to respond before we have to wrap.
We have a couple things. We have a lot more cards to play. And Scott, I hate to break it to you, but nuclear subs move around the globe on a daily basis. All Trump did was just highlight that fact to the Russians. Our subs, which are, by the way, our nuclear subs are the best in the world. We're in Russia's backyard every single day, and there's not a darn thing that they can do about it. That's just a little friendly reminder to good old Vladimir and Dmitry.
All right, Matt Klink, Scott Bolden, appreciate you both as always. Thank you.